Prime Minister Mark Carney says today's conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump was constructive and focused on the relationship between the two countries. The leaders agreed to begin comprehensive negotiations about a new economic and security relationship after the federal election. Until then, they agreed that Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc and U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick will intensify their conversations to address immediate concerns. The Prime Minister told Trump that Canada will implement retaliatory tariffs when the new levies are imposed next week. U.S. President Donald Trump says today's call with Carney was extremely productive. Trump took to Truth Social to say the two agreed on many things and agreed to set up a meeting immediately after next month's election. This morning's call was the first time the two leaders have spoken since Carney became prime minister on March 14th. For reaction, we're joined live now by Jamie Ellerton, political and strategist, founding partner of Conaptus. Jamie, thank you for being with us today. I wonder what your first thoughts are, this first phone call between Carney and Trump.
I think one of the things you've seen with President Trump is he's constantly trying to destabilize and keep people guessing as to what he's going to do. And so I think you're seeing more of that coming from the White House today by taking a different track and kind of laying what seems to be a series of calm. Of course, we don't know what the effects of the tariffs are going to be on April 2nd and whether or not there's any benefit or kind of carve-outs for Canada on this. So there is still so much up in the air but when you pull back that kind of rhetorical flourish of what the president released today.
You know, I imagine a lot of people watching this kind of unfold were kind of holding their breath to see how Trump would react. And yeah, his post on Truth Social was very positive.
Yeah, and so I think when you look at kind of where the nature of this is also, let's not forget, dropping in the middle of a federal election campaign where the Liberals have been struggling in the polls up until just recently with Mark Carney coming. And so I think when you look at yesterday, you have Prime Minister Carney saying the relationship with the U.S. is over as we know it. Whole new thing, a whole new future. We don't know what this looks like. Begs the question, well, what is that future going to be? And what is his version of that versus what's Pierre Poilievre's version of that to give Canadians a real say? Now, today, you have the Prime Minister having this phone call finally with President Trump and President Trump saying, yep, we'll figure out a new deal going forward. So there's a lot of guessing game going on as to what is here. Perhaps this means at least we know the president or hope that the president will stay out of the Canadian conversation as it relates for this federal election and allow the parties to put forth a vision and let ultimately Canadians decide at the end of April.
And we know that April 2nd, next week, is going to be a big date. That is what Trump is calling Liberation Day, expecting some big news on the tariff front there. But yeah, when we are hearing from Carney that this is the start of a new relationship, a new economic situation between the two countries, are we turning a page here?
I think that remains to be seen, especially when we know the executive order was assigned that is going to impact Canada's auto industry. Of course, the Trump tariffs were coming at the end of January, and then the big three auto CEOs got into the White House and the president's ear and says, this is going to upend the entire industry across North America, including American jobs. Don't do this. And you've got this reprieve that's now into April. So there is so much guessing as to what is going on here. I think it speaks to the need, quite frankly, for leaders to not play by Trump's game. What is Canada going to do? We've heard about internal trade barriers. We know we need to do a better job of getting resources to market, whether that's mining or energy. And so much of that needs to be the focus that Canadians debate of in this federal election, rather than living or dying by what a tweet coming out of the White House is.
Sure, because Trump is so hot and cold tomorrow, he could be posting
literally
something.
Who knows what he tweets tonight in his
different.
feverish dream at 1 a.m.
But, you know, we are, as you mentioned, like 6 days into this federal election campaign right now. What does this message coming from Trump mean for Carney in terms of the election?
I think for Carney, any day that he gets to look like he is the prime minister because he is the prime minister and not just campaigning as Liberal leader further reinforces that he's capable to lead and navigate these moments. But I think it also kind of creates a new kind of pattern, if you will. Just yesterday, he literally said the relationship as we know it with the Americans is over. It actually made, I think, even bigger news internationally and international news than it perhaps did in Canadian media coverage over the past 24 hours. I think Mark Carney's saying a lot of things, but in terms of a concrete plan, what his government's actually going to do, how he's going to get the leftovers from Justin Trudeau's cabinet, who now make up his cabinet, to actually get stuff done, when for 10 years they really haven't. There's a really domestic political debate to be had there, and I think you're seeing Conservatives try and talk about this team doesn't have the credibility because it's the exact same people that were there under Justin Trudeau who were authors to a lot of the problems that we're currently facing.
We are seeing that Carney message kind of cut through the noise right now. What sort of challenge do Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and EP leader Jagmeet Singh have to make their voices heard in this moment?
Yeah, that's a good question, Melissa. I think one of the things that's going on right now is you have Canadians tuned into politics in a way that average people normally aren't. They might see a headline, it's passive, but they're busy. Everyone is talking about this. Everyone has a stake. And I think in elections, more so than in elections past, Canadians' votes are truly up for grabs. They want to see vision. They want to see leadership. On the one hand, they want to see someone who's going to be strong and have the fight and stand up to Trump. And on the other hand, they want to make this go away so that people can live prosperous lives and kind of have that better future. And I think within those kind of two camps, there's a lot of things that a political leader can do and propose, regardless of who they are, to have that debate, which is ultimately, I think, going to be up for Canadians to decide.
Can you just characterize for us just how different this election campaign is than something we've seen in our lifetime?
This is truly a historical moment. I think you think of the hyperbole and the platitudes that kind of get thrown about, and kind of thinking these are grand and kind of like a hyper
unprecedented,
right?
Yeah.
This like truly is an era. Like we are looking at 40 years of North American economic integration that has served all three countries well, Canada, the United States, and Mexico, being totally upended. And you have the White House, the Americans, who literally essentially helped establish the rules-based international order after World War II and has given the world a fairly stable period of peace now for over 70 years, just saying, yeah, you know what, we don't want to be world leaders anymore, leave it to yourselves, America first, and all this other stuff that, frankly, is probably going to penalize Americans just as much as they're trying to inflict upon the rest of the world. So we are living through a period of transitionary times, and I think it's going to require real leadership to say, what can the future be? What is Canada going to do to strengthen our relationship with other allies in Europe and in Asia, and kind of create that new normal? And again, come back and closer to home. What can we actually do? Like, we know we're in a housing crisis. We're not building the homes, getting resources to market, all of it. There's so much that can be done that the kind of politics as usual I don't think is going to pass muster in this campaign. Canadians need to feel confident and inspired that when they're casting their ballot, they're voting for a better country and a leader that has a plan to do it. And I think that's going to be the debate that unfolds over the month of April.
Well, Jamie Ellerton, I appreciate your insight as we're following this wild campaign over the next few weeks. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Melissa.